In my previous review, I pretty much ate a load of Taco Bell and then unloaded the fury of my bowels on Ghost Rider. Aside from the issues with the film itself, I questioned if one could make a decent movie out of a concept so lame. After seeing Iron Man, I have to say that, yes, it is possible. The fact is, despite the good reviews, high box office accolades and everything, I refused to see Iron Man when it was in the theaters. And even when it came out on DVD, I really didn't care. But one day, with nothing better to do and all my friends urging me to see this movie, I gave it a shot. You might wonder why I was so reluctant, and the reason is because I think Iron Man is every bit as lame as Ghost Rider. I've read the comics, and the character himself just bores me to tears. What makes matters worse is that I felt that Marvel certainly didn't care about the film, as they chose to basically villainize the character right around the time that the movie was coming out. The trailer really didn't do much for me, so I skipped the movie and I avoided it for all that time. I have to say, though, Iron Man took a dumb concept and made it work. It's not slavishly devoted to the comics like Ghost Rider was. It uses concepts that work and changes concepts that don't really work, and the result is a highly entertaining action movie with a decent plot. Robert Downey Jr. plays Tony Stark, head of a major arms manufacturer, Stark Enterprises, once started by his late father. His partner is Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges. Rounding out the cast, we got Terrence Howard as his friend and military liaison James Rhodes, and Gwyneth Paltrow as his assistant Pepper Potts. The movie starts with Stark in Afghanistan driving in some Humvees and joking around with American soldiers. Their convoy is attacked by terrorists and Stark gets blasted with shrapnel. When he regains consciousness, he finds he's a prisoner in a terrorist camp. A fellow prisoner operated on him and put him an electromagnet in his chest to stop the shrapnel that he couldn't remove from entering his heart. The terrorists are part of an organization named the 10 Rings, one of many cute little references to the comics, in this case a reference to Iron Man's most well-known enemy, the Mandarin, who wields 10 rings of power. Anyway, they want Stark to build a missile for them, and while he refuses at first and is tortured, he eventually agrees, though instead he first builds a miniature arc reactor to put in his chest, replacing the electromagnet so he doesn't have to carry around a car battery. He then assembles, instead of a missile, a prototypical warsuit powered by the arc reactor, which he uses to escape, though the suit is not designed to fly very far, and he crashes it, and it falls to pieces around him. Stark comes back to America a changed man, having seen the weapons that he had created being used by terrorists. And I think an important point must be made here. Stark is immediately characterized as a wealthy industrialist, someone whose genius has led to wealth, and he's not ashamed of it. He's the perfect American capitalist, and although he comes back from Afghanistan a changed man, he doesn't turn into Barack Obama or anything. He's still very much Tony Stark, very much American, and very much a capitalist. This, I think, is important because he's not demonized for being wealthy or for chasing women or enjoying the good life or anything else that hippies would want to demonize him for. He's simply had his eyes open to the reality of his creations being used in the wrong hands and takes steps to rectify it. He creates a more advanced reactor for his chest and a more advanced suit of armor. He announces that Stark Industries will no longer produce weapons, which sends his company's stock down, but he's not too concerned about it. Very concerned about is Obadiah Stane, who turns out to be the sinister character you were waiting for. Stane wanted Stark dead, and still does, and when the 10 Rings finds the pieces of the Iron Man prototype, he puts it together and makes upgrades of his own, eventually leading to a showdown between Iron Man and Stane, who becomes the Ironmonger character from the comics. Stark predictably wins, after all, the movie's called Iron Man, and in a twist that I rather liked, rejects the notion of using the tired and insanely stupid idea from the comics that Iron Man is an anonymous employee of his who acts as his bodyguard, but comes right out and says the line you've been waiting to hear, "I am Iron Man, cue Black Sabbath and credits." Along the way, there's a lot of great action and plot, and enough humor to keep things fun, but never enough to make it silly. Iron Man is a shining example of a Marvel film done right in a sea of more disastrous recent attempts. Of course, there's a sequel, Iron Man 2. Now, I don't want to get into too much detail because right now I'm not reviewing that film, but I'll say it's decent, just not nearly as good. It adds a lot at once and tries to go in a few different directions. It doesn't live up to the original, but it's certainly not bad. What bugs me is, starting with Iron Man, Marvel has been amping up to do an Avengers movie. Nick Fury appears at the end of Iron Man and talks about it, and then Stark appears in Incredible Hulk to talk about it, and then Iron Man 2 largely deals with it and features Thor's hammer at the end and a quick view of a prototypical shield for Captain America. And yeah, there's movies coming out for Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers, and of course eventually an Iron Man 3. I think that they should really just quit the shit and worry about one hero at a time, but we'll see how it turns out. I'm actually sorry I avoided the film, as it's pretty damn good and is one of my favorite Marvel movies, along with Spider-Man 2, and I'd say also the first two Blade films. I'll give it a 9 out of a possible 10.